Yeah, so I'm Rob Holloway. I've worked at the company for just over 15 years. I work within the supply chain department, and my job title is supply chain coordinator. And the basic premise of the role is just to make the relationships with our suppliers as good as possible, so that we can pass the best possible service on to our customers. Well, I have a bit of a running joke with Stan. We say that every single day there is something different, something new happens, and that is genuinely the truth. There's always something every day that throws a bit of a curveball, and we say, "Whoa, we've never seen this before." We've got a really good relationship with our suppliers, so we kind of get to know those suppliers on a business level, so that we can so that we can interact, like friends, half a lot of the time, really. And then alongside that, our main aim is to kind of increase those commercial terms. So whether it's warranties, discounts, return periods, cancellation periods, so we've got the best possible conditions that we can trade under. Alongside that as well, we get a lot of questions internally from our colleagues, because obviously every single one of our orders has a supplier attached to it. So the hundreds of orders that we're doing on a weekly basis, questions arise from that. So we're kind of there as a bit of a support network for our colleagues, whether that's purchasing, sales, or in the warehouse when the goods arrive. EU Automation was my first full-time permanent job, so I'd not had much experience of working life before EU Automation. I made an application in the December, and at the time Darren, who was in charge, kind of turned down the application, and we had a bit of a laugh about it for many years, that it was the worst decision he ever made. Thankfully, I saw the application again, put my CV in, applied, and the rest is kind of history, really. I've kind of been here ever since, so it ticked all the boxes I was looking for at the time, and continues to do so. So just on the company, I would say probably the word to describe it is unrecognizable. From my first day when I walked in, you literally could walk around the office and talk to all of the different departments. The finance department had a couple of people sitting there. Marketing department had one person sitting there. Credit control, there wasn't a credit control department. So it was totally unrecognizable. And that's for me the beauty of it. I remember when we've opened the UK warehouse, and it went from being a couple of shelves in a room in Stafford to a huge kind of purpose-built warehouse in Stoke-on-Trent, and see the growth from that, and then into Germany, and then the opening of the Singapore office and the American office, and now the Mexican operation starting to get off the ground. It all stems from the first day when I walked into the room, and you could see everyone that worked at the company, and now you'd literally have to travel the world to see everybody within a week. There was one a few years ago. I remember it well. It was a Thursday morning, and I had a call with a couple of the guys over in Singapore, and they were talking about an Australian customer who was talking to them about an inquiry, and one of our suppliers in the UK had the parts. So it was doable to get them to our UK warehouse fairly quickly, but then obviously we had to get them to Australia as quick as we could. Before I knew it, the guys in Singapore told me that the customer was already on a plane on his way over to the UK to collect them. That there was no kind of massive prior warning, really. He needed these parts now, and he thought the quickest way for him to get them was to come and get them himself, really. So I kind of took it on myself then. I was like, well, to get the details of when he was arriving, and he was arriving on the Friday morning into England, and he had the office address and not much else, really. So I thought to myself, well, a chap coming all the way from Australia, not knowing where to go, who to be with, he kind of needed a bit of help and a bit of guidance, really. So I've got his number. I've managed to message him once he'd landed. We arranged a hotel for him to stay over in Stafford on the Friday, on the evening once he arrived, and then we managed to get both parts shipped from two different suppliers in the UK into Stafford. We got them, packaged them up, and then he was on his way back to the airport to arrive back in Australia for the Monday morning, so that they could be fitted and installed, really. So he was very grateful for the levels of service that we provided on that occasion. I think the favourite part for me is delivering on a customer promise. It's seeing that we've promised the customer a certain delivery date or certain delivery time on a certain day, and making sure that happens. There's no better feeling than achieving that, driving home and thinking, yes, we did it. And for me, that's what we're all here to make manufacturing possible, and that is the kind of the nitty-gritty of it, to get the part delivered to the customer when they're expecting it or sooner. So when I first started at the company during the induction week, I was told at that point that EU Automation were going to become the biggest automation reseller in the world. So at the time, it sounded a bit of a pipe dream. You know, we were one small office in Stafford, thinking, you know, compared to some of the companies we were looking at that did this, and we aren't far off that now. Really, we're really closing in on the top competition. There's only a handful of other companies out there that do the same thing that we do. So I think that's the biggest thing that most motivates me. Really, is to kind of keep going, to keep pushing, to become the best, the biggest, and the best. And I say, compared to where we were 15 years ago, we're really not far away from doing that now.